After waiting almost 35 years for an official sequel to Ghostbusters 1 and 2, finally got to see Ghostbusters Afterlife. So let's see if it delivered. Shh. You smell that?
Listen. You smell something?
Oh man, that was one of my favorite lines in the original Ghostbusters movies. What up, party people? Bobo here with BrassReel Brothers. Thanks for coming back for some more popcorns. Well, I was able to go see a pre-screening of Ghostbusters Afterlife last night, and man, I have to say the whole day I was getting kind of giddy about going to see it, because it's Ghostbusters. Huge part of my childhood. And first off, let me just say, I was very satisfied, but I wasn't blown away. Look, it was Ghostbusters, and it felt like Ghostbusters for the most part, and it was really enjoyable. But man, Ghostbusters 1 and 2, that's a lot to live up to, especially waiting so long to make an official sequel. And after that reboot failure we had a few years ago, the one directed by Paul Feig, you know, it had Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, Chris Hemsworth, Kristen Wiig. To me, that movie was just a full-on cash grab, and they were just trying to use the Ghostbusters name to make some money. This movie actually does feel like a Ghostbusters film. It ties into the first two movies really well. Storyline and the music, yeah, the music's all throughout this film from the original Ghostbusters movies. That was one of the things that really actually made it feel connected. And it was connected, 100%. But with 1 and 2 being set in the city, this one feels just like a different movie kind of than 1 and 2, just because it's set out in Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere. But I like that about it too, because it makes it feel like something new and different that we haven't seen before. With all that being said, it was kind of Stranger Things-ish, kind of Goonies-ish, you know, with like a coming of age and an adventure story going on. And that might be my like one of two little complaints about the film, but I'll get to that later. This time around it's directed and co-written by Jason Reitman, who's the son of Ivan Reitman. Ivan Reitman did Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and actually is producing this one as well. But the basis of the plot is pretty much what you see in the trailer. Egon Spangler's family, like his daughter and her kids, Egon's grandkids, they got money problems and they're having to move away from the city and basically go to their last resort, which is this house that they inherited from Egon. And of course when they get there, they start finding out all these like clues here and there that are hinting to maybe Egon was a Ghostbuster. And that's the thing. This movie starts out with the kids not knowing that their grandfather was a Ghostbuster. The mom has been trying to keep that hidden from them. The two kids are played by McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard, who are pretty up and coming right now. The mom's played by Carrie Coon, and of course we got Paul Rudd in there, whose name in the movie, no kidding, is Gary Gruberson. And it's also co-starring this little kid named Logan Kim, who is magnificent. He was awesome in the movie. In fact, kind of my favorite part of the film. Not to say that other parts were bad. He just was so good, he kind of stole the show. He played this little kid named Podcast because that's what he's trying to aspire to be, is this like up and coming podcaster, but he's like 12 years old.
Why do people call you Podcast? Oh, I call myself Podcast because of my podcast.
But he's so charming and so charismatic, and all of his jokes are delivered awesomely. Like, his delivery is really funny. You're going to see a lot more of him to come. But the way Paul Rudd comes into the story is he's a teacher at this summer school that they have to go to. But the summer school job is just his side job. He's actually a seismologist who's investigating all these, like, earthquakes that are happening in Oklahoma. Ghosts. Man, there's this really funny scene with Paul Rudd, though, in the classroom when he's just like, yeah, summer school's boring, so I just let him watch movies all summer, and he puts on Cujo on VHS for the kids. Cujo. Hilarious! One of the things that reeled me in pretty quickly with this movie was the opening scene. And this isn't gonna ruin anything for you by any means, because it is literally the first thing you see in the movie. But it shows what happened to Egon. And it does some really cool stuff with the camera and the lighting and everything, to where you never really see Egon in like a full frontal face shot, but you literally get to see what happened to Egon. Really well done. I thought it was a great opening scene. Like I said, it reeled me in pretty quick. It has all the elements. It's a love story. It's a coming of age story. Like I said, it's got some adventure, the sense of wonder. It's a comedy, and the comedy's good in it. It's got some really good jump scares. It does a really good job of intertwining a family movie and a scary movie. Kind of like the first two did. But for me, what it doesn't have is the first two, it was just all about that cast. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. Those guys were everything about that movie. And what I liked about those first two is it was kind of more mature Saturday Night Live style humor in disguise of a family film. This movie is pretty much a family film. Yeah, there's some jokes here and there that are a little crass, but overall, it's geared more towards that family element. Like, I didn't get half the jokes the first time I saw Ghostbusters. I just kind of liked the creepiness of it and the ghost part of it. Later on in life, I got the jokes a little better. This movie, all the kids are pretty much going to get most of the jokes. That doesn't make it bad. That's just kind of what's different about the first two films and this film for me. A little more serious in tone as well. Like I said, the comedy's still there. It just has a little bit more of this Goonies vibe to it, you know? And the fact that it focuses kind of on just like a core group of like 5 or 6 people, like Goonies. I think Jason Reitman did a really good job of what he had to deal with making a Ghostbusters movie though, because it starts out feeling like a Jason Reitman film, and then slowly but surely it turns into a Ghostbusters movie, and then by the end of it you're like, oh yeah, this is Ghostbusters. Like I said, the storyline and the plot is really well intertwined with the first 2 films to where it all comes back around, like a third movie should. Third movie should bring it all back around and show you something from the first movie that you didn't know. So let me talk about Paul Rudd for a second. Paul Rudd's excellent in everything he's in my opinion. He's phenomenal. I think he's always funny, and I think he's a great actor. And in this, he's awesome in every scene. I mean, he's perfect. You will laugh at everything you see Paul Rudd in this movie. However, I just didn't think they used him enough. It's not like he's barely in the movie. He's in the movie all the way through. I wanted more screen time with Paul Rudd. I felt like he would have added more of that element from part 1 and 2 that was kind of missing from this one. It focuses more on the kids in this one. Not to say that it is a kids movie, because it's not. Adults will enjoy this fine. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But you are seeing this movie from more of a kid's perspective, whereas like the first 2, you were seeing it from an adult perspective. But Jason Reitman does a great job of giving you that sort of anticipation for something that's so beloved and something you're so familiar with. Like I said, starting it as a Jason Reitman film and slowly but surely transforming into a Ghostbusters movie. And of course it has the car in it. You have to. You can't have a Ghostbusters movie without the car. But for me, the Ghost Trap as the RC like remote control car was awesome. I'm like, why did they never think of that? That's so cool. And it was great in the movie, just like you see it in the trailer. Look, it's all there and it's all good. I just personally don't think it was quite as good as part 1 and 2. I still loved it though, had a blast with it. It's definitely going straight to the Blu-ray shelf when it comes out. My only real complaints about the film was, like I said, I thought Paul Rudd was just a little underused. I thought the cameos were sort of not really a cameo. They were so tiny until you see the post-credit scene. The post-credit scenes actually added more gravity to the film you just watched. So it's like while you're watching the movie, while you're having a blast with it, if you would have known the things that you find out in the post-credit scene, you would have been way more into the film, if that makes any sense. Because I was kind of like, man, these cameos are kind of, and I thought this person was supposed to be in it, and then after you see the post-credit scenes, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. But the post-credit scenes are great. It just, I wish there was one of the post-credit scenes that would have been more like in the film. But the other post-credit scene is perfect, awesome, and it was just a great way for you to like, all right, I'm walking out of Ghostbusters Afterlife, and that was the last thing I saw. It was perfect. My main complaint though is that when the original Ghostbusters finally show up in the movie, which by the way, that's not a secret, they've been all over talk shows everywhere, they've been advertising they're in this film. When they show up, it was a little phoned in.
Hey, have you missed us?
Not that their performances weren't funny, and once they started talking and everything, oh, that was great. Their dialogue was great once they started engaging with each other. But the way that they were introduced and kind of appeared on screen, I'm sorry, it was just a little phoned in. Not that it made the movie bad, it didn't do that at all. I think they just could have written some things in, tied it in a little better to where it made more sense and made you care about them being on the screen when you saw them. That's all I gotta say. Still was great to see him though, I loved it. But I gotta say this, Bill Murray, obviously he's aged. Dan Aykroyd, obviously he's aged. But man, Ernie Hudson literally looks exactly the same. You go, Ernie. Give me what you're drinking. But all in all, I really did have a great time with this movie, guys. And if you're a Ghostbusters fan, I think you're gonna love it. It definitely feels like a Ghostbusters movie, but it also feels like its own movie. And to do an official follow-up to something like Ghostbusters 1 and 2 to hold up to that candle, that's a tall order. So I'm kind of having a tough time deciding my grade on this one, so I'm just going to be lenient out of nostalgic reasons. I give Ghostbusters Afterlife an A-. Well, that'll do it for this review, guys. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Look for BrassReel Brothers on Facebook. Look for Bobby Williams on Facebook. Look for BrassReel Brothers on Twitter. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you can help us make it to the top. And as always, if life gives you lemons, make some hot, fresh popcorn. Hey!
We're closed.